How do people, companies, and government agencies cope with disasters, natural or human-made? What does research tell us about the nature of crises and disasters? How can communication aid us in dealing with crises and disasters? In this module, we will discuss the nature of risk and disaster, establish some research based on principles about crises, discuss the importance of crisis communication, and discuss which media are most useful in communicating during a crisis. All disasters are local. My research with Dr. Brian Spitzberg of San Diego State University has revealed that there is very little difference between natural disasters and terrorist attacks. Both occur suddenly, often with little warning. They require immediate response from local authorities near the scene, and they require participation of the public. Dr. Spitzberg and I have reviewed hundreds of studies of disaster responses, and here are some of the principles we learned about coping with any crisis or disaster. Communication is the most important tool in any emergency or disaster. Communication is of paramount importance in gaining cooperation from the public and linking responders. Communication is more likely to save lives than any other community action. Local media are vital in an emergency or disaster. Local radio, television, telephones, and loudspeakers are the most immediate, knowledgeable, and accurate during a disaster. The information they provide is essential to the general populace, first responders, and government officials. Warnings must come from high credibility sources and be repeated through many media. Prior research shows that infrequent or intermittent warnings are ineffective. Frequent, repetitive warnings via multiple media with high credibility sources produce the most public compliance. Police, firemen, university experts, recognized news people, and well-known government officials should deliver warnings. Communication must be redundant. Messages should be frequently repeated through a variety of different media to reach either the public or first responders. Likewise, all communication technology should have redundant backup equipment and plans in place to make sure systems do not fail. One of the problems in any crisis is the telephone lines, broadcast stations, cellular phone sites, and transmission towers may be damaged. Redundant media are essential in a disaster. Communication must be two-way. Any disaster communication plan must plan for two-way communication between the public and the media, the public and government officials, the public and their families, and the government and first responders. Across a variety of disasters, many lives could have been saved if two-way communication could have occurred. People need to provide information to officials, and they need information from officials. One-way communication tends to fail. Two-way communication tends to succeed. A unified, centralized source of authoritative information is essential. In any disaster, government officials need to establish command centers under the authority of highly competent individuals with access to reliable incoming information from the field. Accurate, consistent, specific information is essential for an effective public response. Accurate, rapid information leads citizens to make the best decisions. Inaccurate or censored information will lead to distrust and skepticism, making the public unresponsive to subsequent messages. The public should get all information as quickly as possible and must be trusted to make good decisions. Surprisingly, with good information, the public makes high-quality, rational decisions in times of crisis. Panic is not a common response to disasters. Studies of numerous types of disasters suggest that panic is uncommon, and when it does occur, it is usually caused by sensationalistic media reports. Maximum accurate information should be provided to the public, since panic is seldom the outcome of good information. Most people are calm and make good decisions during crises. Government and business institutions need to trust the public with appropriate responses to crises. People are skeptical of threats, threat warnings, and recommended responses. Dozens of studies show that people do not automatically believe threat or warnings and may not take the advice of officials. Citizens typically respond slowly to these messages. Part of the problem is that false alarms produce public apathy. The constant warning of terrorist attacks and high threat levels in various countries have made the public ignore such warnings, resulting in greater rather than less risk. People seek confirmation of threat warnings, and their response depends on message confirmation. People turn to direct observation, which is usually very dangerous, to other people or other media to confirm a threat. More information will provide confirmation and reduce dysfunctional confirmation behavior. Even during armed conflicts, floods, tsunamis, and tornadoes, many people use direct observation. Officials should give multiple ways to confirm the existence of a disaster without the need for direct observations by using the internet, telecasts, and radio broadcast. Likewise, people should be warned not to try to observe storms, bombings, and flash floods. Connecting families is essential to a functional public response. Numerous studies show that people will not seek shelter or evacuate until they have been reunited with their families. Research also shows that they can communicate with their families and they know people are safe, then people will comply with disaster orders and recommendation. In particular, parents will risk their lives to reunite and rescue their children. All disasters are local. The immediate crisis, the initial response, and the immediate media coverage are always predominantly local as a disaster unfolds. This principle is true even of large international events such as a hurricane, earthquake, or major terrorist attack. Past experience has shown that national and international assistance may take days, weeks, or even months. During the early stages of a disaster, organizations and communities are on their own. They must have emergency and disaster preparedness plans as part of their business continuity strategies. Ineffective responses to disasters are costly. Each decade, millions of people die in disasters and tens of billions of dollars are lost. Every community would benefit greatly from competent disaster preparation and crisis response. Please work with your family, business, or city to provide good responses. Conduct drills and exercise to make sure that the plans work. Planning for disasters are costly. Not planning for disasters are even more costly. All disasters are similar. The research is striking that disasters, regardless of their origins, whether natural, technological, or terrorist, share far more similarities than differences. A well-prepared community will respond effectively to virtually any kind of disaster. This is good because preparing for one type of disaster will help prepare for every type of disaster. Homeland security and disaster preparedness should be about protection from as diverse crises as fires, storms, earthquakes, and terrorist attacks. All disasters increase uncertainty and require information. Disasters disrupt people from their normal routines, creating anxiety and ambiguity. Fast, accurate information is essential in alleviating fear, uncertainty, and dysfunctional responses. Institutions must provide high quality, high credibility information quickly and with certainty. Often evacuations occur when sheltering in place is better. Slowly unfolding disasters permit greater media consumption and confirmation than sudden disasters. When clear warnings are available, as in hurricanes and floods, officials and the public can make more deliberate responses. Events such as earthquakes and terrorist bombings require immediate responses. The media can prepare people well for unfolding disasters. In our research, Dr. Spitzberg and I were able to make research-based recommendations that can be used by individual people, companies, and governments to better cope with disasters. Multiple media provide the most effective crisis communication. Communication works best with consistent messages and a rich media mix. Organizations need to use all available means of communication: telephones, cell phones, Blackberries, the internet, radio, television, dedicated public and business networks, and other forms of communication are essential. Remember, people require confirmation from multiple sources that a disaster is occurring. Television is the most robust, multi-channeled communication medium for the public. Television communicates through word and rich images to literate and illiterate people through a robust broadband network as long as electricity is available. It is the most widely used source during disasters and a redundant infrastructure that is difficult to disrupt. It is so robust that no degradation occurs in service if 1 billion people were to use it simultaneously. Though television sometimes oversimplifies and sensationalizes a situation and interviews unqualified sources, it remains a credible and effective medium. Station managers and emergency officials should carefully coordinate plans to maximize this old but robust medium. Likewise, every school, business, and community should have access to television services. They are the most vivid, multi-channeled, robust medium in a natural disaster. Radio remains a significant and important emergency broadcasting system. It is widely available, low-tech, and easy to operate. Radio is usually a local medium, tends to survive disasters and terrorist attacks, and is available almost everywhere, including in cars and trucks and on the internet. Individual citizens, companies, government agencies, and first responders should have battery-operated radios during a crisis. Tabloid and talk radio, as well as rumor mongering, should be self-censored during a crisis. The internet and email is of secondary importance during a crisis, but could be improved. Every medium has a contribution to make. In a crisis, it may provide connectivity to people who have lost phone service or cannot obtain broadcast media. Its redundant worldwide network makes it invulnerable to natural disaster or terrorist attacks. Websites should be updated continuously during a crisis to avoid slow and obsolete postings that characterize previous disasters. Mobile phones have revolutionized personal communication and are a significant resource during a disaster. However, certain natural disasters and terrorist attacks can damage infrastructure, and heavy use during a crisis can jam existing cell sites. The solution is instant deployment of mobile cell sites, called cells on wheels, COWS, with interoperability among providers, and protocols should be deployed instantly during a crisis. Government and phone companies should also deploy a reverse 911 emergency system. This should be developed so thousands of recipients can receive simultaneously disaster warnings through voice or text on their cell phones. Emergency management officials and first responders should have dedicated cellular frequencies and dedicated cell phones with spare batteries. Emergency hotlines with incoming call capacities should be ready to go in a crisis. Standard telephones, hotlines, are also effective. Telephone companies need to have a system in place to block incoming calls or prioritize calls during a crisis so that crisis teams can communicate. Networks and word of mouth should not be ignored. Emergency officials need to recognize the existence of organizational and personal networks and word of mouth communication as a major channel of crisis communication. Moreover, they need to capitalize on this diffusion effect as people quickly spread word of a crisis to friends and coworkers. Mass media can promote interpersonal communication by disseminating warnings that tell people to contact family, friends, and neighbors to pass on emergency information. Sirens and loudspeakers are an old but effective form of crisis communication. A warning siren system should be employed in all businesses and communities, combined with advertising to inform the public where to seek additional information when they hear a siren. Remember, people seek information, and sirens can be a useful initial warning that a storm, flood, or attack is impending. Two-way radio and paging systems through RACE, REACT, and ham radio operators should be planned for now for deployment in a future disaster. Interoperability among radio systems for all emergency responders, including fire, police, ambulance, and emergency response centers, is essential. Narrowband PCS wireless messaging systems should be strongly considered as a backup technology. Newspapers are of little utility during rapidly unfolding disasters. Newspapers can provide in-depth coverage of a crisis event as it unfolds in the days and weeks following a disaster. They can be of considerable use during a slowly unfolding disaster such as an earthquake with aftershocks or a series of bioterrorist mailings. Likewise today, many newspapers operate websites that can be quickly updated to provide emergency information. Non-governmental institutions such as the Red Cross, schools, emergency relief organizations, and hospitals should be integrated into the overall communication system to ensure high-quality, accurate, two-way information. All businesses, educational institutions, and governments should have designated public information officers, or PIOs, to clearly coordinate network collaboration with emergency operation centers to ensure that consistent, high-quality information is being disseminated. It has been said that good luck favors the well-prepared. While every disaster, act of violence, or accident cannot be anticipated, good preparation can minimize the effect of crises and save countless lives. It has been a pleasure to be with you for our 150th International Multilingual ITC video conference. Without a doubt, we live in interesting times. The world has shrunk, and we have become McLuhan's global village. To paraphrase an old phrase, when somebody sneezes in New York, people get sick in Hong Kong, Bombay, and Sao Paulo. The world is a dangerous place, but far less dangerous than just a few generations ago. These should be the best of times and can continue to be, but only through international shared learning and network collaboration, a basic concept we have been promoting with all of you here at ITC for 22 years. We must collaborate to promote peace and understanding, to solve environmental problems that do not recognize national boundaries, to create a global economy in which all people share in the prosperity, and promote values that respect all people, regardless of culture, nationality, race, or religion. We have much to do. It is important that we create environments, real or virtual, where people can live without fear, where people do not take their own lives or the lives of other people, where people can make the most of their lives economically, spiritually, ecologically, and interpersonally. Thank you very much.